Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And yes, you are both the inspiration and the inspired, so let's embrace this journey together, inspire others, and let's make every moment count before we expire. Welcome to Inspired Living, where each moment presents a chance to ignite your passion, explore your curiosities, and embrace the wonders of both the ordinary and, yes, the extraordinary. I'm your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, thrilled to guide you on what I like to call soul adventures filled with inspiration and discovery, and today's show is going to be no different. And together, we're going to uncover those unique diamonds within each and every one of us and reveal the hidden gems waiting to shine in our lives and the world. Whether you're at home, on the road, or anywhere life takes you, this show is crafted to uplift your spirit and empower your dreams. Inspired Living is all about building a supportive community where we celebrate every victory, big or small. Each episode features incredible guests who have faced challenges, pursued their passions, and made a positive impact in their fields and our beautiful world. Expect engaging discussions, perspectives, thought-provoking questions, and yes, actionable steps to transform and manifest inspiration into your own reality. Of course, we wouldn't be where we're at without our inspired listeners around the globe, so a huge thank you to all of our inspired listeners. Your support throughout the seasons, listening, downloading, subscribing, leaving reviews. You've actually put Inspired Living on the podcast map. Not only is it a top choice and best inspirational podcast, best spiritual podcast, and now also a best introspective top 100 in the United States. So we're truly thankful and grateful and humbled, and just keep tuning in because we're going to try to continue to bring more inspiration and amazing guests like we have today, including, yes, the fur babies of our world. If you haven't subscribed, liked, or followed us yet, there's still time. You can connect with us on our Facebook page. Just look for Inspired Living and join the community of over 3,000 inspired listeners. You can also follow us on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X, formerly known as Twitter, under Inspired for Us. That's Inspired the number 4, so Inspired for Us. You can also check out our YouTube channel, Inspired Living. We are also streaming on Audible, through Alexa, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast, just look for Inspired Living. So get ready to be inspired, uplifted, and motivated, because I always say the best is always yet to come. Let's go prospecting together, shall we, through body, mind, and spirit. And I just want to say, of course, Happy New Year. The year of the horse has arrived, 2026. Last year was the year of the snake, or the year, if you follow numerology, it was the year of the 9. So we've now moved into a brand new year. So I always like to say the snake helps sheds the old skin of who we are, and the horse, saddle up, buckle up, whatever you want to call it, and hold on for this ride in 2026, as it's the year of the horse leads us into the year of the 1 and new beginnings. And I'm going to read a little bit about our guest today, who's joining us for the first time. She's got a book that's just come out called Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. And I'm going to read a little bit about her journey, but I also wanted to open up this show with a quote from Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who I learned about many, many years ago with my own journey of death and dying and grief and losing our loved ones. And it says this, and this is what she had written, and this is at the opening of the book for Adriene as well. But it says, "The most beautiful people are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep, loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen." And that's from the Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I just wanted to open up the show before I read a little bit about Adriene and her journey, because I think that's very fitting even for my own journey. And it's a reminder, and I haven't seen this quote in years, so when I opened up the book and started to read through it, it was just a reminder that yes, beautiful people do not just happen. And many of us that, are, whether it's a guest on the show or even just the show itself, is a big reason of why I do what I do, because of the sufferings and the struggle and the loss, but to find our way out of those depths. So I just want to welcome to the show for the first time Miss Adriene Caldwell, and she's written this book called Unbroken: Life Outside the Lines, which is a powerful new book. You can get the link to her website on all of our social media platforms, and of course through Om Times Media. And it's a tale of trauma and triumph over tribulations. I love that, tale of trauma and triumph over tribulations, with a gripping firsthand account of the effects of untreated mental illness, physical abuse, sexual assault, and traumatic foster care. Adriene's story is one of destruction, but also one of discovery of darkness given free rein and an innate light that refuses to dim. With courage and honesty, she offers hope that healing is possible, and yes, the future can be brighter. A stark depiction of her childhood trauma, Unbroken: Life Outside the Lines, is a harrowing coming of age story defined by resilience in the face of unimaginable odds. Born into a family riddled with dysfunction, Adriene Caldwell knows what it means to be unwanted. When their mother becomes increasingly unstable, Adriene is the only person her baby brother David can rely on, despite her young age. And it isn't until a brutal attack leaves her emotionally and mentally shattered that Adriene realizes that to have even a semblance of hope for her future, she must take her fate into her own hands. Unbroken explores themes of family, love, and what it means to find your place in a world unwilling to play savior. A gripping firsthand account of the effects of untreated mental illness, physical abuse, sexual assault, pedophilia, and traumatic foster care, Adriene's story is one of destruction and discovery of darkness, again, given free rein in an innate light that refuses to dim. You can learn more about her, the book, at unbrokencaldwell.com. And again, we have these all posted on our social media pages. And with that, Adriene, welcome to Inspired Living. How are you today?
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for having me on. It's truly a privilege to be here with your listeners as well as with you. And I am doing great. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just got a little bit over that cold that was kind of go around the United States. A big flu season this year, so both my wife and I are finally recovered from that. But yeah, no complaints. Just here in the present moment, and I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your book and your story publicly, because I know this can't be easy. This takes a lot of courage to talk about, to write about, and to share your experiences. And before we dive in, Adriene, I just want to read a quick disclaimer from the book, because I think that's very important here. If I can find it here. So for those that are listening to today's show, or you go and get this book and read it, there is trigger warnings. We're going to be discussing, not necessarily in full detail, but emotion and physical abuse, sexual assault of a child, the drowning death of a child, extreme poverty, mental illness, homelessness, abusive foster care, pedophilia, graphical sexual descriptions, violence, bulimia, incest, death, and suicide. So please proceed with caution. I just wanted to read that before this show as well, because this could also, just listening versus reading, could also be a trigger warning for those that have had or have gone through those experiences. Thank you for putting that in the book as well, Adriene. And tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're coming in from the world, why you decided to write this book and have the courage to step out publicly and share it with our global community today.
The abuse that I endured while I was in foster care, I've had nightmares about it as recently as a year ago, where I wake up crying. And that is compared to my schizophrenic, physically abusive mom, who basically the last beating was with a wooden dowel rod from the closet, what you hang your clothes on. So essentially a baseball bat. I've never had a nightmare about my mother, but the foster mother that I was with, I still have nightmares about her to this day. And there are just some shocking statistics about foster care in the system. 20% of the U.S. prison population is made up of former foster kids. At one point or another, they were in the system. Yeah, 1 out of 5. And then girls, by the time that they get to 21 years old, 7 out of 10 of them already have children. So we're not breaking the cycle. As soon as they have that child, they're continuing the line of poverty and probably abuse. So I really would like my book to become a platform for a few social issues, but foster care is absolutely one of them.
Yeah, and I've done that for several years now. I had a friend of mine that was in foster care, and this is going back to the late 70s. So we're I'm a little bit dated here, but even back then, just the system itself is a pipeline, like you said, to the system of incarceration. Young women having children at young ages and repeating that pattern. So, speaking out about this, have you received any pushback for bringing light to such a sensitive topic? Is not just foster care, but what you've gone through in writing this book. And thank you for sharing. I have the book in front of me, but like you said, it's not coming out till March. Just some editing. So just the inspired listeners, they can know to get that in March. But have you received any kind of like people that push back against you, or because you're bringing a light into this dark space? I'm always curious if people receive, maybe warnings or death threats, or you shouldn't be talking about this, including friends and family. Tell me a little bit about that.
No, I've actually received the exact opposite. Okay. About halfway through writing, I went on Fiverr and found about 23 beta readers. And my readers gave me feedback. They supported me. They sympathized. I was treated during foster care. So, no, I did not have that at all. I felt supported. Now, the book isn't public yet. I've sent out advanced reader copies, so we'll see what the backlash is. But even one of my friends, or my daughter's friend's father, he works with juvenile probation, and he has actually spoken with his higher ups, and they're in talks to have me come in to speak with them, because I do have the firsthand experience, but I also have what most other trauma memoirs and trauma survivors don't have. I have my Children's Protective Services case file. So I have the psychiatric evaluations, the therapist reports, the foster parent reports. I have the clinical component to my life as well. So you marry the two, the firsthand account, and then you provide the case file. I hope to see my book and the case file used in classrooms to help educate, future social workers, caseworkers, counselors, therapists. It's not my first audience. My initial audience are the people who are struggling, just trying to get through the day. But it's absolutely a long-term goal to see if putting my book in the classroom can help, because I've received feedback from 2 separate interns, now counselors, that my book not only helped, it even helped a girl choose her career field. So,
yeah. So kind of paved that way for, putting, these books, which, at certain times, and the reason I asked the question about pushback, or, in this day and age, everybody has an opinion about something. And I've been in the public sphere now for, this is, I guess, our 11th season of Inspired Living. And there are times when you go public and your book isn't technically published yet publicly, for our listeners out there, it takes courage because you're going to get pushback. You're going to get people that have an opinion. Aristotle said it the best: to avoid criticism, the only way to avoid criticism is by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing, right? And I know, Adriene, that's not where you want to be. So putting this book in the hands of people, which, down the road could be a controversial book where they're going to say, we're going to burn this book, right? So that's what I'm bringing up for our listeners is it takes great courage. So if you have something that you've gone through and you want to write about it or share about it or come on this podcast and talk with me about it, it takes great courage because there, at some point publicly, there will be some critics or pundits or backlash based on what you do. And so the point is to keep going, because awareness is the greatest agent for change. And what you're doing is you're bringing this book and this detailed story of your journey into other people's lives that not only helps people say, you know what, I've been a victim of this, or maybe I can choose a career path that's going to help people, like a career counselor or a social worker, like you said, that enables them. And I think, it's brilliant that you're putting this out there because, again, awareness is a great agent for change. And you and I both know that this has been going on for a long, long time, whether it's the foster care system, the jail system, and everything in between. These are things that you just didn't talk about. And now we're having more open expression, and that's awareness, and that will bring change eventually. But I just wanted to point that out, that question specific, because somebody's listening to the show right now, Adriene, saying, I've got a story to tell, but I'm too worried about what people are going to say or what people are going to do. And you gotta go past that criticism, because you're going to get opinionated no matter what you do in life. That's just part of life.
I'll be honest with you, Mark. I am terrified. Once it's actually published, once it's out there, I know for a fact that there will be trolls. I will receive criticism. In fact, when I put my book in front of my beta readers, I got feedback saying, Adriene, sometimes you don't portray yourself in the best light. Sometimes, you look like the antagonist, not the protagonist. Maybe you should think about changing that. And I refused. And I said, no, I am telling my story. I am telling my truth. And some of the things that I did and said really were horrible. They were bad. Yeah. And I'm owning it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it so that readers like me better. But I am, my strategy for dealing with the criticism that's inevitably going to come, because I do share everything in my book, is to have my husband read it first. He's going to screen for me and then, reinterpret. But yeah, I know it's going to come because of what I've done. So, but you're ready for it, right? You're ready because there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be trolls. There's going to be there's even going to be bots that aren't even real people that just pick it up and just try to, that's the technology of what we live in, right? But knowing yourself and staying true to your authentic self and being the editor of your own story, because again, people are always going to have an opinion. I'll give you a great story real quick, and then I've got another question for you. This actually, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so if you ever saw my studio, if we were on television, you'd see my studio, and I've got Star Wars posters because I grew up with Star Wars. And I just learned that there's a famous line in Empire Strikes Back where Leia says to Han Solo, "I love you." And Harrison Ford didn't want to say "I love you" back because he just felt like it was just didn't fit the narrative who he was. And so he actually said, "I know." So that in history now, we know it is where Leia says to Han, "I love you," and Han responds back, "I know." But the original script was written by Lucas to say "I love you" back, and they fought for days over this, about should he say "I love you" back. And so Harrison Ford stuck to his guns on this, and they went and watched the movie and got feedback, and everybody loved it because it fit who he was. And that's what I'm saying for you, Adriene, is this is your story. And there's always going to be a director or a pundit that's going to say, "Oh, you need to do this, stop being the antagonist, or you be the protagonist," whatever. But you stay true to who you are because it's your story of unbroken life outside the lines. And I always remind my students and my listeners that as an alchemist, we don't fear the darkness, we study the darkness.
And some people get into those opinions because they fear of what's being said or fear of that darkness. So at what time did you know to share your story publicly, Adriene, to say, you know what, I'm going to put this out there and get in front of a community and beta writers and beta reviewers and all of that? When did you know? Was there something inside you that just clicked and you said, I'm going to step into my courage, I'm going to take this leap of faith, I'm going to learn how to fly by leaving the nest? What was it for you?
So a little bit of background. I was awarded the state of Texas until I was 18 years old. A couple years after I got out of custody, I received a document asking if I wanted a copy of my case file. Otherwise, they were going to dispose of it. And me being me, I said, yes, absolutely. And I received this giant box with these 2 huge stacks of paper. And I tried to go through it and I couldn't, and I shoved it under the couch and in the back of a closet. And every 3 or 4 or 5 years, I would try to go through it, and I couldn't. It was too triggering. It was too upsetting. I couldn't. Sure. And at 40 years old, I was going through some things, and I pulled the box back out. And I started going through it, and I had to, in order to write my book, I had to deal with all of the repressed emotions and the compartmentalization that I had done for the past 30 plus years in order to survive. So writing it really was the result of going through that box, being angry about the way that I was treated. And the other thing that prompted me, so again, a little more backstory. I went to 13 schools by the time I graduated high school.
Wow, that's a lot.
When you do that, I learned how to meet people, and I also learned how to keep the conversation always on them, never on me. And the few instances where I would discuss myself, my trauma history, what was going on with me, I kept getting the same feedback. I've heard from the time I was 16 years old, you should write a book. I've heard that just repeatedly throughout my life. So at 40 years old, going through the case file, going through, looking at the abuse I endured during foster care, reliving the traumas of my schizophrenic, physically abusive mother, and, having the feedback from, tons of different people, not tons, because I rarely shared my story.
Sure, right.
I decided that it was time to write a book, and there was nothing to be done about the foster parent who abused me, who dehumanized us foster girls. But, and anyone who says emotional, psychological abuse isn't real abuse, I will fight them tooth and nail. Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Adriene. Now. I'll be there right along with you, my friend.
Because what she did to me was far worse than my schizophrenic, abusive mother. So I felt it was time for me to claim my story, to claim my truth, and to share it. And I do so unconditionally and without filters. And at times, I want to be very, very clear, very upfront. The book is dark. It's heavy. It's a difficult read at some points. And my words to the readers are to keep going, because ultimately it is a book about redemption. It is about triumphing over just horrible travesties and living through things that no one should have to live through. But I'm on the other side of it. I have a life now that I am blessed, and I am so grateful but I wouldn't be here if I hadn't had the experiences that I did.
Exactly. And that becoming of age of 40, even if you're still having dreams to this day, you know, education leads us to, you know, knowledge, life experiences lead us to knowledge, and, you know, and that leads us through age to that sense of wisdom. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show today to talk about this, because you're not the only one out there, and that there are other people. I think it would be a good read. And one of the things I talk about in my own personal journey is the trauma and tragedy, which I referred to back then at the age of 27, the TNT that literally blew my life up. It literally completely changed the course of my life, my belief systems, my learned behaviors, everything changed. And so I call it the TNT, the trauma and tragedy. And when I saw this for you, the trauma and tragedy, but over triumphs, is, you know, this dark read that you're talking about ends up being, at the end of the day, the dawn still comes to light, right? You're that lighthouse in the darkness that is going to help other people that have gone through what you've gone through, and be that lighthouse and all those ships out there on a dark, stormy night to find their way. And that's why I wanted to have you on and talk about this story. And so we're going to go to our first break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the triumphs. We're going to talk about the successes of what Adriene has done, and talk about that positive inspiration that comes from this darkness of what we're talking about today. So today's guest, Adriene Caldwell, talking about her new book, Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. We'll be right back here on Inspired Living. Stick around.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Inspired Living. Our guest today, Adriene Caldwell, with her new book coming out in March of this year, Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. And Adriene, I just want to jump into the book, and I want to, since it's the second half of this show, I want to start with chapter 4, which is, you called it New Beginnings. And we know that the first chapters, and what I like about the book is you put your psychological evaluations at the top of each chapter. So this one says, 12/1/1992. So just to give you perspective, I just graduated from high school. And it says this, quote, Adriene has led a transit life, having lived with her mother in shelters and other people's homes, end quote. And what you do is in each chapter, you put your own psychological evaluations, which I thought was brilliant because you're given a perspective of somebody that's actually looking at what you've gone through. But your chapter 4 starts talking about, okay, new beginnings, because, you know, through this journey that you've gone through, it's about turning pain into purpose of what you talk about. And writing about trauma is not only just deeply personal, but now you're sharing it publicly. But, you know, finding this strength to revisit painful memories while maintaining hope and balance through the writing process. This is going to take years. I'm sure you've gone through years of counseling and transformation and self-healing, but that ends up being a lifetime of healing, that everything that we go through, but it's about how we can turn our pain into purpose, or to use another Star Wars quote from Yoda. Yoda always said that pain is our greatest teacher, right? So I didn't say it backwards because I can't say it like Yoda, but yeah, pain is our greatest teacher. Teacher the pain is, or however Yoda says it. But it is, how do you turn pain into purpose, starting with chapter 4 about new beginnings?
So I always, well, I went through dark times once I entered college and was really on my own, didn't have any safety nets anymore. My aunt and uncle, with whom I had periodically lived growing up, they were not involved in my life. Basically, no one was involved in my life. And I was going down a really dark road. And I made the decision that I was dealing with cocaine addiction. And I made the decision that if I kept going down that road, it was going to ruin my life. And while I have endured some truly horrific experiences, I've also been incredibly blessed. Duke University had a talent identification program. Students who scored highly on standardized testing, they were recognized, sought out, and while I was in foster care, and I refused to give her name. I call her the witch from hell, except with a B, so she's TPFH. While I was living with her, a camp sent a college camp sent me a brochure saying, "Do you want to come stay 3 weeks on campus, live in the dorm, and you can do a year's worth of high school work in 3 weeks?" And I was all over it. I loved that idea because, it got me out of the hell that I was living through by being in foster care with that woman. But it put me it put me in a group of peers, others who valued education and really focused on it and thrived. So that was one opportunity that really blessed me. It actually enabled me. So I went for 3 summers. It's the reason I was able to graduate high school in 3 years. Another opportunity that I had, I was selected to participate in a 1-year foreign exchange that was hosted by the U.S. Congress and the German Bundestag. We were essentially junior ambassadors to Germany. So I left this horrific foster home where we were just dehumanized, treated worse than animals. And I had this amazing host family. And I met friends that I'm friends with to this day. And it changed the entire trajectory of my life. I lost 30 pounds. I got my hair cut short. I got my belly button pierced. Like I experienced independence, and it was amazing. Coming from what I had been living through in foster care, where we, being the foster girls, were not allowed to sit on the furniture. We had to sit on the floor like dogs. We had separate silverware and dishes. Whenever I washed the foster family dishes, I had to add bleach to the dishwater. And there was it was a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath house. So the foster girls got the master bedroom because there were between 4 and 8 of us at any time. And we had the half bath, which was the toilet and the sink. And we were only allowed to use that toilet. The full bathroom, that where everybody had to shower, it was only one bathroom in the whole house. The last foster girl to take a shower had to clean the tub with a bleach cleaner before any member of the foster family would get in the tub. Think about what that does to you psychologically. Like it ingrains in you that you are unworthy, that you are dirty, that you're not deserving, that you're less than human. And this woman, I had forgiven everyone, and I at 4 years old, I made attempts at making restitution and really apologizing for the people that I hurt. I can't think of the word. Making amends. And the foster mother is the one person I haven't been able to forgive. And I wish I could, because it's only causing me pain. She's not hurting from it. If I could forgive her, it would lighten me. It would lighten my burden. So back to Germany and my incredible host family. Now, I did live in northern Germany, so we ate a ton of fish, which I don't like. The weather was always cold. It was always gray. We literally lived on the North Coast. Like there was a beachy section, and I've put my toes in the North Sea, but it was amazing. I met a girl down the road. We started jogging, and we're friends to this day. And my host mom, I send her flowers every Christmas because they were an example of a normal functioning family, something that I had never seen before in my life. I had never seen those dynamics or healthy communication. So I've been incredibly blessed. I received that congressional scholarship to do the foreign exchange, and it was highly, highly competitive. 300 students were selected out of thousands, and I thank God for being selected, because it put me on a better path. It gave me those healthy examples and showed me what life could look like. Whereas before, all I had seen was poverty just and abuse.
Darkness.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Well, and thank you for sharing that with us and the listeners, because that road, that you talked about, drugs, cocaine, that ends up being a dead end road at some point, right? So I'm glad that you got off that fast track to nowhere. And one of the things you said I think is very important for the listeners as well is there's the old saying that unforgiveness keeps them in control. And when you can move into your own forgiveness and move and transform, not easy, but it lets go of that past, and it lets go of them being in control of you because you have moved forward. So that's a very powerful statement. It is moving forward in healing. And then of course the new beginnings, because people are portals, and we know from our history past, what you were describing sounded very similar to what we've done to the indigenous cultures around the world, what we're done to the Jews in World War II, what we're done to people that don't look like you and I, that are maybe a different color, whether it's the civil rights movement, being treated as less than a human. So we know that is out there, that exists, and that, people are portals. But there's also the other side of this coin where you start to, get opportunities, and you found your tribe, you found your, what I talk about all the time, community. If you look at the word community, you break it down, it literally says unity, and finding those people to help you see the good in life, because there is a lot of good in life, but we also balance that with the dark and the light every time, right? And so you found your way, and it's beneficial because you're talking with me today on this show. Otherwise, we could have had a completely different outcome, and I would have never learned your inspiring story. And so, thank you for sharing that. And while you were talking, I had to look up because I was not saying Yoda right. I was paraphrasing, but this will make sense to what I'm saying now. And he says that it wasn't about pain, but failure is a part of pain as well, right? And I always teach my students, and I always tell my listeners, failure is first attempt in learning. And sometimes those lessons that we learn are very dark, very, very, psychologically impactful for the rest of our lives. He said here, this is from Yoda, pass on what you have learned, strength, mastery, but weakness, folly, failure also. Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher failure is. And so we're here through failure, and you should be my tribe, find my community, and really start thriving, whether you're in Germany and then, sticking your toes in the North Sea, or you're now here on Inspired Living talking to me. So thank you for sharing. Again, this takes a lot of courage to share stories like this, Adriene.
It's really an honor. It's an honor to be here, to be able to share my story with your audience, with you. It is scary, but
it is.
I feel like I have support. You're being incredibly supportive, and I feel safe. So yeah.
Yeah. And you're bringing awareness to other people. I've always said it when I started doing this show 11 seasons ago. I said, if we can reach one person out there through the show format, through our amazing guests that we've had on over the 11 seasons, if we can reach one person, then I'm doing my job. Because it's not necessarily about reaching the masses. It's about changing that one person's life that picks up your book and says, you know what, I'm going to become a career counselor because of this book. I'm going to do this because of what Adriene went through, and I want to make sure that type of abuse and that type of system doesn't stay in place. And this creates a next generation of more emotional, highly critical thinking people. Even though it was very hard for you, and very just listening to it, just you just makes your skin crawl, right? It's just, but it's right. You're the author of your story, and sharing this is going to change somebody's life, whether it's through this podcast or the book being put out in more publications. But you're turning your pain, and again, this comes back to what I was talking about, failure and pain. You turned your pain into a purpose, and at some point, Adriene, you're going to give your pain, but also you're going to give purpose to somebody else because of your pain. That's how I look at it. We don't have time to go into my backstory, but a lot of what I do is because of the pain, but turning pain into purpose to inspire others. That's why I do what I do today. And, you went from surviving to living, because it's at that early point in your life, you were just surviving. You were just trying to make it through the day, right? And then trying to find, alternatives, whether it's cocaine or alcohol or whatever vices us as humans go to lessen the pain, to distract from life, to escape life. And so, how did your understanding of healing change as you moved from that simply surviving state of mind to experiences to truly finding who Adriene is and living again?
Well, first I want to say that I like what you said about changing one person. That's actually my barometer for success. I will consider all of the pain that it took to write my book, which it's taken me 5 years. It's been hell. It's been incredibly painful, but I feel like it will be a success if I can truly, profoundly, deeply impact one person's life. If I can truly change one person's life, then I will feel like it is a success. And the power to write, going through all of this, what I've come out the other side with is forgiving myself. There are things that I share in the book that I am deeply ashamed of, and that I had not forgiven myself. I was not showing the love to myself that I would show to anybody else who had gone through a similar situation. So that's where it took me. It allowed me to have perspective and to really be gentle with myself, be kind to myself, understand that when I was doing those bad things, it wasn't because I was trying to hurt the other person or, intentionally causing damage. I didn't have any other coping mechanisms. I didn't have, I would manipulate people. I would manipulate men because I didn't know how to have healthy relationships. That had never been mirrored for me. I didn't have a mom and a dad to provide that example for me growing up. I've had to, and it's true to this day. I've had to learn these skills, and sometimes I just miss things because I didn't have those role models. I didn't have those experiences. So learning to forgive myself, to let some of the shame go, and to just be kind to myself is really what I've come away with.
Oh, brilliant. And it's such a valid point, Adriene. Forgiveness for self, forgiveness for others. Like I said, unforgiveness keeps them in control, and having that awareness to, because sometimes, like you said, the coping, having the tools to cope with such things. I lived with survivor's guilt for almost 20 years. I didn't even know that I was living with survivor's guilt because both my brothers had died in the same week, and it's a big part of my journey of who I am today. But sometimes you're not given these tools to understand, to cope with. And if we go back, just to be fair, if we go back in the last 50 plus years, you didn't really talk about it openly, right? And I'm a child of the 70s, so if you were talking about being sensitive or you have feelings, especially as a man, then there's a lot of labels that come with that, or they're gonna have this white wagon with two guys and gonna load you up in a straitjacket and take you off to the mental hospital. It was this fear of talking about it. But in today, especially this is another reason I do the podcast, is we can talk about this in an open, safe environment without judgment, without opinion, and we can help other people there. I guarantee you, because we have a global audience, Adriene, so I guarantee you we're reaching one person through this topic today. I guarantee it. I'll bet my mortgage on it. And the thing that we are really seeing in mainstream society is we're seeing, A-list actors, we're seeing professional athletes talk about mental health, talking about their struggles with, how to cope with certain things. And so I think, as we move forward, this will be more, again, awareness is the greatest agent for change. And this is what we're doing, because this is the power of storytelling as well. How to go from surviving to living, how to move from pain to purpose, how to move from forgiving to forgiving yourself to forgiving others. These are all very, very powerful, but also navigating that vulnerability. How did you handle the fear of or hesitation that came with being so open and honest in this writing? Because it's not an easy read for the listeners out there. There's even diagrams at the end of the book, the amendments, that show pictures of your abuse in full detail, right? A chart, like you'd see something in a case, in a trial. And that's not easy to look at, but it's what happened. It's what was done to you, and you're sharing that. So what is, how do you navigate this vulnerability on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I still fall back into old patterns of repressing it. and pushing it down. And I have to be conscious and aware of what I'm doing. Sometimes it's okay to take a break from it for a while, but I have to know the difference between taking a break and hiding. Mm-hmm. And I'm at the point in my life where I don't need to hide anymore. I'm not going to hide anymore. My story is my story. It's my truth. And I will tell it because I do believe it can impact people. It can help people. And even to the social worker, caseworkers, therapists, counselors, psychologists, I included the abuse diagram that you referenced, as well as the full psychiatric evaluation at the end of the book, because I do want it to be used in classrooms. The firsthand account from a survivor and the clinical component. What the diagnoses were, how it appeared from a clinical standpoint. So, yeah.
And just full transparency, and that's what I love, and that's why I read at the beginning of the show just the disclaimer, for those that are going to go order the book when it comes out, or visit our social media pages, or listen to this podcast, because it can be a trigger, but triggers are also awareness moments. And like you said, there are times that you push it down. There's times that you're fully aware of it, right? But at some point along your journey, Adriene, one of the mantras that I love to use is this didn't happen to me as a victim, even though you are a victim, but now where you're at in your journey and who you are today, it happened for you, because what you're doing is you're now inspiring, you're actually sharing, you're actually acknowledging, you're bringing awareness. And that's what a leader is. And some of the most amazing guests that I've talked to in over 11 seasons on Inspired Living are people like yourself, because you've endured and struggled so painfully and deeply, but yet you still find a way to be kind. You still find a way to have happiness, a way to help others. And that's one of the things I've taken away from being on this show for 11 seasons. And what's next for you? What's the future writing projects? What's the speaking or continuing to share your message in new ways? You're already sharing your message, so it's out there with this show and a global audience. So congratulations on sharing the story. But what's next for you?
Thank you. So book launch, getting through book launch, I would love to be a speaker at conventions or events for the people in the field, the juvenile probation, going and speaking to them. I would love to really have the case file. So I've got Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. I'd love to have the case file, the companion text, and be able to introduce it in the classroom and to see it change how people approach trauma or early childhood trauma, and what differences it can make, how it can help them better understand it and see it. But for me, I'm going to continue speaking out. I'm going to continue sharing my story. And I would really, so I do want to say my book is not for people under 18. But the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross quote, I'm actually in touch with her children. I have permission to use that quote in the book. And some friends, some of my husband's friends, after I shared a little of my story with them, they sent me that magnet. And it's on my fridge, and I just thought it was so poignant, so beautiful. But
brilliant.
Yeah, it reflected me.
Yeah. Well, Adriene, thank you so much for sharing your story. Lao Tzu reminds us the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that single step. The psychic in me is telling me that you're going to go far and do well. You can learn more about this show at unbrokencaldwell.com. The book is called Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines by Adriene Caldwell. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today, and let us know in the future how this turns out for you. Okay, my friend?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been great.
You're welcome. All right, listeners, until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate. Most importantly, wherever you're at, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover the diamond within and the many hidden gems that are all around us. We'll see you next time here on Inspired Living. Take care.